Snow rolled across the open plains like sheets of white silk, carried by a wind sharp enough to cut through a man's coat. Nathan Hale, once known as the proud owner of Hale Creek Ranch, leaned against the corral post, watching the frozen breath of his cattle fade into the gray December air. A hard year had beaten the ranch nearly to its knees: drought, sickness, and the sudden passing of his father. By the first week of December, Nathan had accepted a truth no rancher wanted to face: he couldn't do it alone anymore. The ranch hands had drifted off to better-paying work. Supplies cost more than a month's earnings. And every morning he woke to the same cold thought: if something doesn't change, Hale Creek will be gone by spring. That was when the letter arrived. Nathan found it tucked between the pages of the newspaper the mailboy tossed on his porch. The envelope was soft blue, the handwriting gentle and careful, as though written by someone who still believed words mattered. He opened it with chilled fingers. "Mr. Hale, I understand you are looking for a wife who is willing to work beside you, not behind you. I am not afraid of hard winters or harder days. My life has not been easy, but I have learned skills most women never needed to learn. If you would have me, I can be ready by Christmas. Clara Whitlock." Nathan read it twice, then a third time. A mail-order bride wasn't something he ever imagined for himself. But the way she wrote, strong, steady, without begging or embellishment, felt different. She didn't offer beauty, charm, or promises she couldn't keep. She offered capability. And that was worth more than gold in a dying ranch. Nathan folded the letter slowly, the wind snapping at the edges. Somewhere deep in his chest, a spark lit, a small, cautious hope. 3 days later, he sent his reply. "Clara Whitlock, if you are truly unafraid of the challenges ahead, I will meet you at the station on December 23rd. I cannot offer riches, only honesty, work, and whatever future we can build with our hands." As he sealed the envelope, he felt something he hadn't felt in months. A reason to believe Christmas might bring more than snow. "I appreciate you staying with me, my wonderful friend. I hope you hit the subscribe button, so you're the first to know when our next video drops. Grab a cup of tea or coffee, settle, and tell me in the comments what time it is for you right now, and where you're listening from." The morning of December 23rd arrived with a quiet stillness that wrapped the town like a wool blanket. Nathan stood at the small station platform, the cold biting at his fingertips despite the gloves he'd pulled on. Steam puffed from the approaching train, its whistle echoing across the snow-covered valley. He wasn't nervous, he told himself. He was prepared. Prepared for a woman who might not look the way her letter sounded. Prepared for awkward introductions. Prepared, even, for disappointment. But as the train hissed to a stop, and passengers stepped down one by one, Nathan realized something he hadn't prepared for. Hope. It crept up on him quietly, like a warm coal hidden beneath ash. Then he saw her. Clara Whitlock descended the steps with a careful grace, wearing a brown wool coat, slightly worn at the seams, and carrying a single trunk. Dark hair peeked from beneath her bonnet, and snowflakes clung to her lashes like tiny crystals. She wasn't glamorous, nor fragile-looking. Instead, she radiated the sturdy confidence of someone who knew how to survive storms, inside and out. "Nathan Hale?" she asked gently. Her voice matched the letter, calm, grounded. "Yes, ma'am," Nathan said, removing his hat. "Welcome to Hale Creek." She smiled, but her eyes scanned him with quiet calculation, not judgment but assessment. She was measuring him the same way he was measuring her. A working partner. A future wife. Two people standing at the edge of a winter neither could face alone. On the wagon ride back to the ranch, Clara kept her hands clasped in her lap, but her gaze never stopped moving, taking in the frozen fields, the thinning cattle, the sagging barn roof. "You've had a hard season," she observed. Nathan glanced at her, surprised she'd spoken first. "Hard enough." "Good," she said. He blinked. "Good?" Her lips curved in a small, knowing smile. "It means there's work to be done. And work is something I understand." He didn't ask what she meant. Not yet. But something about the way she said it made him feel as though she carried an entire story in her trunk, one she hadn't unpacked yet. As they reached the ranch house, Clara stepped down from the wagon and looked across the land with a steady, assessing gaze. "This place isn't dying," she said softly. "It's waiting." Nathan wasn't sure whether she was talking about the ranch, or about him. The ranch house felt warmer that evening than it had in months, though Nathan hadn't added a single extra log to the fire. Clara moved through the rooms with quiet certainty, as though she'd lived there long before stepping across the threshold. She unpacked only the essentials: a folded dress, a sewing kit, a packet of herbs tied in twine. Nathan noticed the sewing kit. It wasn't the delicate, decorative kind kept by city ladies. The needles were thick. The thread was coarse and strong. The leather pouch looked handmade and worn. "You sew?" he asked. Clara paused, her fingers brushing the pouch. "I mend, I repair, I remake when I have to." She met his gaze. "Life doesn't hand you new things just because the old ones break." He nodded slowly. "We could use some mending around here." A soft smile touched her lips. "I assumed so." By supper, the wind howled against the windows, rattling them in their frames. Nathan set down 2 bowls of stew, thick and hearty. Clara dipped her head in thanks and ate with the steady appetite of a woman who knew the value of hard work. "How long have you been on your own?" he asked. She didn't look up at first. Then she answered, her voice low. "Since I was 16. My father died in a mining collapse. My mother passed the winter after." She stirred the stew. "I learned to survive by fixing things: clothes, saddles, boots, harnesses. Anything a person needed to keep going." Nathan leaned back, thoughtful. "There's a leather shop in town. Had to close last year. Didn't have anyone who knew the trade." Clara didn't answer, but he noticed the flicker in her eyes, recognition of opportunity, of purpose. Later, as the fire dwindled and the house settled into the soft creak of winter wood, Nathan showed her to the spare room. "I know this arrangement isn't typical," he said carefully. "We'll take time, learn each other, no expectations until you're ready." Clara looked up at him then, her face lit by the glow of the lantern. "I didn't come here for expectations," she said softly. "I came here for a future." Nathan swallowed. "Then we'll build it." As she closed the door, Nathan stood in the hallway for a long moment, listening to the wind outside, and to the quiet, steady presence of the woman who had walked into his home like a promise. Morning broke cold and quiet, coating Hale Creek Ranch in a thin crust of ice. Nathan was already outside when Clara stepped onto the porch, bundled in her coat, cheeks flushed from the sharp wind. She took in the land with the same steady, evaluative gaze she had shown from the first moment she arrived. "Where do we start?" she asked. Nathan appreciated that she didn't ask if they should start, only where. He pointed toward the barn. It sagged to one side, boards warped by weather and time. Snow had piled in the gaps of missing shingles. Inside, 2 of the best horses were stalled, each one worth more than the ranch's remaining herd combined. "If the roof caves," Nathan said quietly, "we lose everything that's left." Clara stepped into the barn, running her gloved hand along the cracked beams. "Wood can be salvaged," she murmured. "Nails can be reused." She crouched, tapping the dirt floor. "Foundation's good." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "You know barns too?" She gave a small, almost shy shrug. "I spent 2 years working for a farrier's widow. She taught me about animals, repairs, and what to do when the hired men drink themselves stupid." Nathan chuckled. "I see why your letter felt different." But Clara wasn't smiling anymore. She'd found the broken harness. It hung on a nail, the leather torn and brittle, stitching frayed from age. Nathan felt a flush of embarrassment. He'd meant to fix it for months but never had the time. Clara lifted it gently. "Do you mind if I take this inside? Can you save it?" She examined the edges, running her thumb along the rough seam. "Yes," she answered simply. By nightfall. Something stirred in Nathan's chest, hope, or admiration, or both. "You don't have to start working so soon." Clara shook her head. "If I stop moving, the cold catches me. Better to keep my hands busy." All morning, she watched Nathan handle the ranch. She saw the thinning hay supply, the fences leaning like old men, the cattle too few to bring real money. And though she didn't say it aloud, Nathan understood what she was thinking. Hale Creek wasn't just struggling. It was hanging by a thread. By noon, Clara returned with the harness, stitched cleanly, reinforced, polished to a rich dark sheen. Nathan stared. "Clara, this looks new." "It's not new," she corrected softly. "It's saved." For the first time in months, Nathan felt something shift inside him, the quiet, humbling realization that this woman might just save more than a harness. She might save the entire ranch. Word traveled fast in small towns, even in winter. By the next afternoon, someone had already seen Clara riding with Nathan to the supply post, a bundle of repaired harness leather tied behind her. Inside the shop, Nathan gathered feed and nails, while Clara wandered toward the back where the owner, Mr. Hargrove, sat hunched over a pile of damaged tack. Broken reins, split stirrups, torn saddlebags. Your repairman quit months ago, Nathan said. Town's been sending things to the next county. Hargrove grumbled. Ain't had anyone who knows what they're doin'. Clara stepped forward quietly. May I look? Hargrove squinted at her. Little lady, these ain't dress hems. Nathan waited, expecting Clara to shrink back, but instead she took up a piece of torn leather and ran her fingers along it with a confidence that silenced both men. This was stitched too tight, she said. Leather this dry needs room to breathe. And these rivets? She shook her head. Wrong size. Anyone using this saddle would have been thrown within a week. Hargrove's eyes widened. You can fix that? Clara nodded once. Give me an hour. Nathan leaned against the counter, watching as Clara worked at a small side table. She threaded needles, softened leather with oil, hammered rivets with precise, measured taps. Customers drifted in and out, slowing to stare at the woman repairing tack faster and cleaner than any craftsman the town had seen in years. By the time she was finished, Hargrove lifted the saddle with something close to awe. Miss Whitlock, this is fine work. He cleared his throat. You lookin' for coin? Clara hesitated. Nathan stepped in gently. She's my wife-to-be. And she's here to help the ranch. Hargrove tapped the saddle thoughtfully. Boy, this work could bring in more money than cattle right now. I'll pay a good rate for everything she can repair. Nathan felt the weight of those words settle into his chest. A new kind of future, not built on luck or good seasons, but on skill. Clara wiped her hands on a cloth, cheeks pink from the attention. If it helps the ranch, I'll do it. On the wagon ride home, Nathan glanced sideways at her. You didn't tell me you were a master craftsman. Clara kept her eyes on the snowy road. A woman alone doesn't boast, she said softly. She just survives however she can. Nathan felt warmth spread through him, not from the coat, but from admiration. Clara, he said quietly, your hands might save us. She looked toward the ranch in the distance, its silhouette against the winter sky. I didn't come to be saved, she whispered. I came to build something worth staying for. The days leading up to Christmas grew brutally cold. Snow fell in heavy curtains, blanketing Hale Creek Ranch in white silence. Nathan woke early each morning to break the ice in the water troughs, while Clara warmed her hands by the stove before beginning another long day of stitching, mending, restoring. But winter wasn't done testing them. 3 days before Christmas, a storm rolled in, the kind that turned the world into a shaking wall of white. The wind howled around the house, rattling shutters, beating against the door as if something wild wanted to get in. Nathan shoved firewood into the stove while Clara laid blankets across the window edges to keep the cold from creeping inside. Storm this big? Nathan muttered. We could lose half the herd. Clara straightened. Then we won't. She wrapped a scarf around her face and grabbed the lantern. Nathan stared. You're not going out there. You can't move cattle alone, she answered simply. Not in weather like this. He hesitated, about the danger, about risking her, about risking both of them. But Clara stepped closer, her voice steady. You said we'd build a future together, she said. That starts with keeping the ranch alive. Nathan swallowed hard, but nodded. They stepped into the storm side by side. The wind slammed into them, sharp as broken glass. The lantern flickered wildly as they fought their way toward the pasture. Snow swirled around the herd, the animals panicking, pressing against the fence, threatening to break it. We need them in the east paddock. Nathan shouted over the wind. Clara didn't falter. She moved like she'd done this 100 times before, her small frame bending against the wind, her arms waving, voice clear and sharp as she guided the animals through the white chaos. Nathan watched, stunned, as the herd began to shift, slowly at first, then in a steady, organized flow. Clara's presence seemed to calm them. She knew exactly when to push, when to step back, when to whistle sharply into the wind. By the time they secured the last gate, both were shaking from cold, snow clinging to their eyelashes like tiny shards of ice. Inside the barn, Nathan wrapped a blanket around Clara's shoulders. She shivered, but her eyes shone with fierce determination. You handled cattle like a ranch foreman," he said, breathless with admiration. Clara rubbed her hands together. "My mother taught me," she said. "We ran a small place once. Before everything changed." Nathan stared at her, realizing again how much he still didn't know about the woman who'd come to him through a letter. She wasn't just useful. She wasn't just skilled. She was strong in the places he was breaking. Clara met his gaze. "We saved them, Nathan." He nodded slowly. "No, Clara, you did." Outside, the storm still roared. Inside, something new had begun to take shape, fragile, warm, and unmistakably alive. The storm eased overnight, leaving the ranch trapped beneath a thick blanket of snow. The world outside was white and silent, but inside the house, the fire crackled warmly as Clara boiled water and Nathan brushed ice from his coat. He watched her for a long moment. She moved with purpose, but also with a heaviness that hadn't been there before. A weight she rarely showed. When she noticed his gaze, she paused, fingers curling around the tin mug. "You look like a woman carrying more than sewing needles," he said gently. Clara exhaled, long and slow. "Everyone carries something, Nathan." He stepped closer. "Then let me help carry yours." For a moment, she said nothing. The room held its breath. Finally, Clara sat at the table. The firelight flickered across her face, revealing a softness beneath her usual resolve. "My family owned a small homestead," she began. "We raised goats, chickens, simple things. It wasn't much, but it was ours." Nathan listened quietly as she continued. "When my father died in that mine collapse, everything fell on my mother. She taught me how to mend leather, how to wrangle animals, how to survive when the world didn't care if we did." Her eyes dimmed. "The men who claimed the land after the collapse, they weren't kind. They pressured my mother, tried to take our place. When she refused, they burned down our barn." Clara's voice tightened. "My mother didn't survive the winter after. She'd lost too much." Nathan's jaw clenched. "Clara, I'm so sorry." She looked down at her hands. "After that, I moved from place to place. Worked for anyone who'd pay honest coin. But every winter brought back the same fear, that I'd lose everything again." Nathan reached out, laying his hand gently over hers. "You're not alone anymore." Clara's breath hitched, just slightly. "I wrote that letter," she whispered, "because I wanted a place that needed me. Not just for cooking or cleaning, but for what I can do. What I've learned." Nathan squeezed her hand. "This ranch needs you more than you know. And not because of your skill. Because of your strength." Her eyes lifted, meeting his, unguarded, vulnerable, hopeful. For the first time, Clara allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she was home. Outside, the winter sun rose high over the snow, its light falling across Hale Creek like a quiet blessing. 2 days before Christmas, the storm had passed, leaving the town bustling again. The annual Christmas market, small but full of life, opened along Main Street. Lanterns strung between buildings flickered against the winter dusk. Children tugged their parents toward candy stalls while musicians played soft fiddle tunes that drifted through the crisp air. Nathan guided the wagon into town, a stack of repaired tack beside him. Clara sat straight-backed, gloved hands folded neatly in her lap. But he could see the nerves in her posture. She had offered to repair items for Mr. Hargrove, yes, but selling her own work? That was new. "You don't have to do this," Nathan said softly as he helped her down. Clara shook her head. "I want to." They set up a small table near the blacksmith's forge, where the heat warmed the air. Nathan laid out the bridles, saddlebags, and reins she had restored. He watched Clara as she quietly arranged them, not proudly, not boastfully, but with the solemn care of a craftswoman who respected the work more than the glory. At first, people walked by with only passing glances. Then one rancher stopped. Then another. Soon a small crowd formed, murmuring as they inspected the stitching, the polished leather, the reinforced seams. "Who did this?" a man asked, lifting a bridle with visible awe. Nathan nodded toward Clara. The man blinked. You? Miss, this is the cleanest stitching I've seen west of the river. Clara swallowed, flushing. Thank you. Within 20 minutes, every single piece was sold. Then orders started coming in. Could you fix a saddle by New Year? My harness split. Can you repair it? You do custom work? Clara's eyes widened with each request. Nathan watched her struggle between overwhelm and exhilaration. Finally she said, one at a time, but yes, I can. Nathan felt something shift in the air, a turning point, a quiet, unexpected miracle. As the last item sold, Clara stepped aside, pressing a gloved hand to her chest. I didn't expect this. Nathan moved beside her, voice gentle. Clara, your work deserves it. She looked up at him, the soft glow of lanterns reflecting in her eyes. For the first time, she whispered, I feel like I'm not just surviving. Nathan's voice lowered. You're not. Clara breathed out slowly. This might actually save the ranch. He nodded. No, Clara, you will. Snow began to fall again, soft, light, harmless. The kind that felt more like a blessing than a storm. And in that moment, in the glow of the Christmas market, Nathan realized something simple and undeniable. He was falling in love with the woman who had walked into his life with a needle, thread, and a fiercely unbreakable spirit. Christmas Eve settled over Hale Creek Ranch like a warm quilt. The air outside was biting cold, but inside, the fire glowed steady, filling the home with a gentle orange light. Clara set a kettle on the stove while Nathan carried in the last load of firewood. Her sewing kit lay open on the table, needle and thread glinting softly. Nathan brushed snow from his shoulders. Town's still buzzing about your work. Hargrove wants you to take on the big saddle order next week. Clara turned from the stove, cheeks flushed from the heat. I'll do it. We need every coin we can gather. He shook his head lightly. Clara, we're better off than we were last month. Better off than we've been all year. She paused, her hand resting on the kettle handle. Because of you. Nathan stepped closer, quiet but firm. Because of you, your skill, your grit, your strength. Clara's breath caught. She looked down at her hands, the same hands that had saved the herd, saved the tack, saved the hope he thought he'd lost forever. Nathan, she said softly, I didn't come here expecting anything more than work and a place to stay. I know. But I also didn't expect kindness. Or partnership. Or, she hesitated, voice trembling, the feeling that I matter here. The room grew still. Nathan reached out, gently lifting her chin with 2 fingers so she would meet his eyes. Clara, you don't just matter here. His voice was low, warm, certain. You've changed this place. You've changed me. Clara blinked rapidly, fighting emotion she rarely allowed to show. I'm not good at saying what I feel. You don't have to be. Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small leather pouch. Nathan recognized it. It was the first thing he'd seen her unpack when she arrived. She opened it carefully and took out something small, wrapped in cloth. I made this yesterday, she said. For you. Nathan unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a hand-stitched leather band, engraved with careful etching, his initials, and beneath them, a delicate symbol of a creek winding through hills. It's a wrist guard, Clara murmured. For when you're working. You kept slicing your arm on wire fences. Nathan swallowed hard. No one had made him something since his mother. He slipped it on. Perfect fit. Clara, he whispered, this is beautiful. She stepped closer, her voice barely above a breath. I wanted to give you something that would last. Something made by my hands, for the first man who ever treated me like an equal. Nathan's heart tightened. As snow drifted gently past the window, he realized the truth he could no longer keep silent. He didn't just respect her. He didn't just admire her. He was falling hopelessly, quietly, undeniably in love with her. And tomorrow was Christmas. A day for beginnings, not burdens. The morning of Christmas Eve dawned with a soft, rose-gold glow spreading across the Montana mountains. Snow glittered like crushed diamond dust, and frost painted every fence post and wagon wheel with delicate white lace. But inside the Hardell ranch house, warmth pulsed from the hearth, and from the 2 people now standing side by side, ready to face whatever came next. Clara stepped onto the porch, lifting her face to the cold air. She had never felt so light, so unburdened. The fear that once clung to her like a shadow had finally dissolved. Beside her, Ethan wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, the gesture tender enough to melt the frost at their feet. "You're safe now," he murmured, voice low. "And you're home." Clara's smile trembled. "I never thought I'd belong anywhere. But you gave me more than shelter. You gave me a chance." Ethan looked at her then, not as the mail-order bride he expected, not as the stranger who'd stepped off a stagecoach with secrets in her eyes, but as the woman he already felt his life bending toward. "You didn't owe me anything," he said. "But you gave this ranch its heart back." The door creaked behind them as the ranch hands stepped out, dozens of handmade quilts and scarves wrapped around them, Clara's handiwork, each one stitched with care and gifted freely. Their gratitude had reshaped the ranch's spirit in ways Ethan couldn't have predicted. One hand tugged Ethan's coat. Little Sarah, once too sick to play, now stood bright-eyed and rosy-cheeked, wrapped in the blue quilt Clara had made. "Miss Clara," she said shyly, "are we gonna have a Christmas dinner with the whole ranch?" Clara knelt, brushing the child's hair back. "Yes, sweetheart. A big one." Ethan watched her with a quiet, swelling awe. This woman hadn't just arrived with a hidden talent, she had arrived with a purpose. As the sun lifted fully over the horizon, a final wagon approached the ranch. Sheriff Cade stepped down, carrying a sealed document. "It's done," he said. Marshall confirmed it. "Clara's ex-fiancé is wanted in 2 states. He won't be coming back." Clara exhaled, relief loosening the last knot inside her. Ethan reached for her hand. "Then maybe we can start our life now?" Clara nodded, eyes shining. Snow fell softly as Ethan kissed her for the first time, warm, certain, and full of promise. And in that moment, Clara realized she hadn't just saved his ranch. She had found her Christmas miracle.